the end of all of this, he can answer technical questions. I just know how to find rocks.
I will do my best to answer your question.
Okay, Jim Kriegh, as you may know, and I'm going to be reading the intro because this actually, I had to think, happened 30 years ago this Thanksgiving, and I'm not getting any younger, so I'm going to be reading. But I did write it the other day. Jim Kriegh, as you may know, was the father of our town of Oro Valley. He thought of the idea to annex, or to incorporate. After retirement as a professor of civil engineering at the University of Arizona, he started the hobby of metal detecting for treasure. In 1995, he discovered a huge meteorite strewn field, and I will tell you how all this happened. Starting in the early 90s, I began going rock hunting and metal detecting with Jim Kriegh and his friend John Blennert. We had previously joined the Desert Gold Diggers Gold Club. During the September 1995 meeting, a scientist from the U of A Lunar Planetary Lab was the speaker, Dr. David Kring. He said that while we were all out looking for gold with our metal detectors, we should be looking for meteorites, and he brought a few to show us. In November that year, Thanksgiving actually, 95, John, Jim, and Christy, Jim's dog, went to a place called Gold Basin where the Gold Club had several mining claims for all the members to use. While there, Jim noticed some brown rocks which sounded like gold, but were not gold. Remembering David's talk, he brought some of these rocks home and took them to show David Kring at the U of A. David said, "Those are meteorites. Are there any more?" And Jim said, "Well, I think they're all over the place." And David said, "Well, if that's true, that will really be exciting." So Jim and John and Christy went back up to get some more to show David that there were more. And after that, David asked if they would volunteer to map the strewn field as volunteers for 2 years in secret. Jim and John said yes and asked if a third person could join them. So I became part of the team. We were told not to tell anyone about this discovery as they wanted a map drawn of the field and the finds where they were lying naturally. They didn't want the field disturbed by the dozens of meteorite hunters that would show up after this is announced to the public. We agreed, and the adventure began. Jim bought a large RV for this project so that we could all stay a week at a time for 2 years. We went up once a month for the 2 years. We completed the 2 years, and at the end of the time, we had mapped the field 6 miles by 12 miles. And I have Jim's hand-done map on the table behind you with some other meteorites if you get a chance to look at it later. This was before cell phones, and people had Garmins, but nobody had cell phones. So he actually, each night on a topo map, being a civil engineer, would mark where we found the things. But there became so many that he had to devise a system of numbering them and making circles with numbers so that the U of A would know where every single piece came from, as I'll show you when we look at the pictures pretty soon. Since that time, other hunters have mapped a larger area. David Kring always said there should be basketball-sized meteorites somewhere in the lake or across the lake. And just about 8 or 9 years ago, some meteorite hunters went from Mesquite, Nevada, down south, and found basketball-sized meteorites on the other side of the lake. So think how many are in the lake. In fact, if you think about meteorites falling all over the world all the time, most of them go in the ocean, I would think, mathematically speaking. So the university studies showed that this asteroid was the size of a car, and it exploded above the Earth, showering the area with pieces of all sizes. We found that at least 65% were buried, so we had to dig many out of the ground. We had heavy hand picks with a strong magnet attached. When we heard a noise underground, we would dig with our picks, and the meteorite would jump onto the magnet. And I have my pick and my magnet back there with the meteorite on it, so you can see how that worked. A test showed that the meteorite fell 15,000 years ago at the end of the Ice Age. And I would love to talk to a geologist sometime as to why they're sitting there. what happened during the Ice Age. That's all very fascinating too, and I have not made that study yet. So meteorites are always named after areas on a map or a geographical thing, and so this was named Gold Basin. It's in northwest Arizona. So in February 1998, during the GEM show, the U of A announced this discovery to the public, and all of the meteorite dealers, hunters, authors of books, and scientists, collectors wanted to meet Jim Kriegh. They were all here for the GEM show from all around the world. Who knew there was a meteorite underworld that I had never, ever heard about? That's why when they asked us not to tell anybody about the find, we looked at each other and said, who are we going to tell anyway? Who would care? So that was interesting. So they were here, and they all wanted to trade their meteorites, the dealers, for the gold basins that we had, because they had none. So all three of us gained large collections that very first year. And later, when it was announced, those who were hunters wanted to join us in the field, and so for many years after that, we had further adventures showing folks how to hunt a gold basin, and we had lots of good times doing that. Since Jim Kriegh's death in 2007, I remain in contact with the meteorite world via the internet. We also get to see each other in person at the Tucson Gem Show each year. I have a collection of color photos to show you from my photo album, which I hope you will enjoy. Since this is about the whole adventure, you will not only see meteorites, but also the beautiful scenery at Gold Basin, which is a high desert plateau in a Joshua tree forest. And since I'm from the Sonoran Desert all my life, I had never seen a Joshua tree forest. It's absolutely beautiful. So when I'm through with all these pictures, and then a 8-minute video you'll see after the pictures, Larry Lebowski will answer questions. Okay. Okay, looking for my, okay, this is a photo taken by a professional photographer of 2 Gold Basin meteorites and one of the prettiest gold pieces on quartz that Jim and I found when we were up at Gold Basin. And the gold piece is about 1.5 inches high. It's really, looks like the gold is dripping down the sides of it when you look at it up close. Okay, this is where you enter Gold Basin. The sign was there 30 years ago, and I know just over the 15 years or 20 that I kept going there, it has fallen down and disappeared. And Gold Basin, if you're heading from Kingman to Las Vegas, that's Highway 93. Not too far past Kingman, you see a sign that says Pierce Ferry Road. If you turn right on Pierce Ferry Road, it takes you to Gregg's Hideout Road. Turn left on Gregg's Hideout Road, and the meteorite field is both sides of the Gregg's Hideout Road all the way to the lake. And I looked up Gregg's Hideout the other day. A man named Tom Gregg had a ferry on the Colorado River in the early 1900s. Why they call it his hideout, I don't know. Now, the first trip that I went on with them, they took a generator and a rock saw because they wanted to pick up any rock that sounded like a meteorite and cut it open and make sure we knew exactly what to look for and to listen for, so we weren't picking up things that were not needed. There's Christy, Jim's favorite wonderful dog. And of course, I made him a nice scarf to wear, her, Christy. And this was a typical find. You might come back to the truck with a few meteorites and a couple pieces of gold. And especially John Blennert, he was a well-known gold hunter in the state. So he found more gold than the rest of us put together. That one piece of gold with a hole in it, he actually ended up giving me, so I still have that. This was the initial campsite, and we worked out of there for a long time. There's some creosote bushes and some choyas, but other than that, I'll show you later the cactus that is in the